Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and this week I want to tell you about how to attract Orioles. There are 9 species of Orioles across North America, and of those, the Baltimore and Orchard Orioles nest in Michigan. Timing is everything when it comes to attracting these beautiful birds as they fly northward to nest in the spring. So it's important to start early and have your feeder ready when they first arrive in early spring. So you want to put your feeder out about a week or 2 in advance if you can. And right now it looks like sightings are happening in lower Michigan. And so now's the time to get them up here in the Midland area. It's good to put them out in southern states in April and usually May further north. So they should be here very soon. Orioles are attracted to the color orange. So it's important to choose a feeder that has a lot of this color and that is designed with Orioles in mind. They cannot hover like hummingbirds. They need places to perch, and their beaks and tongues are larger, so you want feeders designed for them specifically. They love the color and taste of oranges, so place those orange halves on feeders, on hooks. There are special fruit feeders designed for hanging oranges. So let me show you a few of the feeders we carry that are designed specifically for Orioles. We have this Oriole nectar feeder that holds 52 ounces. It has places for the Orioles to perch, and it's that bright orange in color with the ports designed for them specifically. And then we carry this orange baffle that you can put on top. The orange attracts them and it'll help shade. If you live in a really warm climate, you're worried about evaporation of your nectar, or also it keeps the rainwater out if you live in a rainy area. And then Oriole feeders often provide for both feeding both jelly and offering spikes for orange halves to go. So besides hanging orange halves on fruit feeders or on your different Oriole feeders, you can also place them along a fence line and sort of create this orange runway that shows the Orioles as they're flying above, grabs their attention with the orange color and draws them in. So that's a great thing to do near your feeder setup. And when you're putting oranges out, it's important to replace them daily. They tend to dry out, and if left out for several days, they can grow mold that is harmful to the birds. Fair warning, squirrels like the oranges too, so they're probably not going to last terribly long. But it's a great way to get Orioles' attention. And they also really love grape jelly. So if you can offer that in a shallow, open dish or cup, you want your jelly feeder to be set up without drainage. On this Ultimate Oriole feeder, they have shallow trays that the jelly sits in next to the oranges. And you do want them to be shallow. If you put too deep or too much jelly out, it can soil, it can get on the Orioles' feathers, soil their feathers, so you don't want to do that. And then you can also make sugar water or nectar for them the same as you would for hummingbirds. So 1 part sugar to 4 parts water. And you want to choose, again, a feeder that has perches because they can't hover like hummingbirds do around their feeders. They need to land to be able to drink, and you need to make sure that the ports are sized correctly for Orioles. And They might try to get into your hummingbird feeders, but again, their bills won't fit. So it's nice to have the nectar available for them too, especially if they're trying to get in and knocking down your hummingbird feeders. It's important to keep it fresh. So check out my video where I make some hummingbird and Oriole nectar. Use some nectar defender, micronutrient that's safe for the birds and reduces bacterial growth. You can keep it out for about a week and a half instead of a couple of days. And also never use food coloring. It's not necessary. The orange on the feeders is plenty of color to draw in your Orioles. That's just excess and not the best for the birds. You can also make some special Oriole nectar. I found this recipe online. If you have the time, it's 1 cup grape jelly, 1 cup water, half a cup of sugar, and juice from half of an orange. And you combine and bring them to a boil and simmer until the sugar's dissolved. Cool to room temperature and use it immediately, or store it in the refrigerator for a few days for future use. So that one's a little more involved, but a fun treat to offer your Orioles. And sometimes Orioles will also eat suet and mealworms. Suet in particular, if you live in the part of the country where Orioles overwinter, they're likely to do that, and also during the nesting season. So you can get orange flavored suet. And then offering mealworms, especially as nesting season starts, is great. It offers the higher protein that they'll want to be eating at that time. So a lot of people will take their jelly dishes and switch over once we transition from the migratory period to the nesting season, and use that for mealworms. And then as you're placing your feeders out in the landscape, you have to think like a bird. You want to place the food offerings and the feeders out in the open so that they can be easily seen. Orioles like to forage high up in treetops. That's also where they nest, and you want them to be able to see your feeder. So don't tuck it in under a roof or awning or under the dense foliage of a tree. We have our pole system set up kind of in along a woodland edge at the edge of our yard, where it's easy for birds flying over to see it. And it's also helpful if you place your feeders near water, a bird bath, and if you can add motion to that water in your bird bath, that's a really great thing to do. Moving water attracts 10 times more birds. So if we take a look here, I have our bird bath set up with a water wiggler, but bubblers, misters, and drippers will also work, providing that moving water will definitely catch the attention of the Orioles and help you bring them into your yard. And you can also put other splashes of orange color in your landscape. You can tie ribbons or cloth or survey tape onto trees, on the bushes, on railings, on branches to attract them. Just make sure you keep track of it. Make sure it doesn't loosen and become a tangling hazard for your wildlife. You can also plant your garden with orange blooming flowers and or garden art. So other ways to introduce orange into your landscape and help attract Orioles. You want to keep out ants, and so one way to do that are with water moats. This ultimate Oriole feeder, which has oranges, jelly, and nectar. If you look in here at the top, there's a water-based ant moat built in. We also sell those separately as Nectar Protector Juniors, or we also have a ant repellent gel product that you can put around the poles or hooks that the ants would have to travel down to get to your feeders. Orioles nest in tall deciduous trees, in open woodland, forest edges, along riverbanks, and in small groves of trees. So bigger picture, thinking about your yard, try to conserve and plant those things to make better habitat for orioles in the long run. They forage for fruit, nectar, and insects in trees and shrubs. So make sure you plant those species. So you can plant native trees and shrubs and wildflowers, and those would include species like raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, elderberries. They definitely like dark colored fruit. Trees like red mulberry, you can do cherries, serviceberry and crabapple, all native species that would provide fruit for them. You can do vines and wildflowers that hummingbirds like. Those flowers will also provide nectar for your orioles. So species like bee balm, you can see I have some bee balm coming up right here. And I left our blackberry shrubs in place along the edge of the woods to provide fruit as well. You can also plant native honeysuckles and cardinal flower. Again, all those flowers hummingbirds like will also be great for attracting orioles. And they nest in especially big, tall American elm trees, but they'll also use maples and cottonwoods. So conserving or planting those trees for future nest sites is a great way to provide for this species as well. And you can offer nesting materials. So female orioles build a tightly woven sock-like hanging nest, and they'll use things like plant fibers, strips of bark, grasses, vines, and animal hair. So you can see I have our grapevine alpaca nesting ball close to the feeders where it's easy to find nesting materials. So if you don't attract orioles in the first year, don't give up. It may take a few seasons to attract an oriole following, but once they find you, it's very likely that they'll keep coming back. So I hope those tips help, and good luck getting orioles in your backyard.